The third part of JoJo's bizarre adventure, Stardust Crusaders, has easily been the most popular and recognizable part of JoJo for the better half of 20 years now, being the first part of the series to introduce stands, the main ability that would be used by a majority of the characters for the remainder of the series as well as its foreseeable future. The main JoJo of the part, Jotaro Kujo, would also go on to become the poster boy of the entire series as well as a shonen manga icon. But much like every part of JoJo, it's not without its flaws, some more than others. So there is no denying Stardust Crusaders' popularity, but that popularity by no means reflects the stand's favorability, as one of Stardust Crusaders' major flaws is its minor antagonists. And I'm not talking about the enemy stands that our main cast would be matched up against. Honestly, a majority of Part 3 stands are just as interesting as the next parts, but the problem I have with Stardust Crusaders is the actual stand users themselves, most being forgettable, uninteresting, unrelatable, or just downright non-existent and just appear right at the end of the stand battle to be dealt justice by the Crusaders with their stands. This was clearly a problem that the series had been struggling with in the beginning of its transition to the stand user of the week formula, as the goal of any manga is to keep your readers interested and not bored, especially in the machine that is Shonen Jump. Araki stated in JoJonium Volume 10 interview, Part 3 was built like a road movie, similar to the Mitokomen drama, which was a long-running Japanese television show. The Joestar group goes on a journey and visits different places where they run into stand users with different abilities. In order to bring out the personalities of the different stand users, I needed to think about how to introduce them and how the story would flow. Since it's a long manga, I need to make sure the readers don't get bored with it, so I always take care to balance my storytelling. And with this philosophy, Hirohiko Araki has greatly progressed towards his initial goal, going from mediocre villains like Devo the Cursed, Cameo, and Arabia Fats to characters who are relatable, understandable, and actually feel like real believable people, like Prosciutto and Pesci, Ringo Road Damo Tamaki, and many others who actually get exposition of who they are and why they do what they do, to the point where it's not uncommon to see full flashbacks for minor villains. So for all the flack I give Stardust Crusaders for its below average minor villains, we can't forget that it did give us someone great. None other than Hol Horse, a minor villain unlike any other, the Crusader that never was. Although Hol Horse may seem like a pretty routine minor villain, a womanizing outlaw with an interesting gun-type stand, Hol Horse was actually the only minor villain in the series that Araki would consider having joined the main cast. Unlike Kakyoin and Polnareff, who from the beginning were always planned to be introduced as villains but then switched their alliances from Dio to the Crusaders, Hol Horse had always been planned to be just another minor villain, and nothing more than that special about him except for the fact that he would be introduced alongside Jay Guile and Hanged Man, as the first partner stand users to mix things up from the previous stand battles that were all just one-on-one encounters. But as Hol Horse's arc went on, Araki seemed to grow attached to his character, saying that he's an outlaw gunman, an essential element of the westerns I love, and he's got a unique atmosphere to him, so I thought it'd be a waste to get rid of him so soon. I also liked his personal philosophy of preferring to be number 2 opposed to number 1. Araki liked Hol Horse's philosophy so much, in fact, that he carried it over to Kira Yoshikage, the main antagonist of Part 4. So as we all know, Hol Horse never did end up joining the Crusaders, which in my opinion is a bit disappointing, and Araki's second thought of letting him stayed just as that, a thought, never to be materialized. But with this second thought did come some interesting pieces of art that make you think what could have been, like the cover page of Hol Horse being one of the Crusaders clearly replacing Avdol, as well as the cover of Volume 4 where he looks more like a friend than foe. But in the end, Araki thought that Hol Horse's character would throw off the balance of the main cast in personality and ability, being very similar to Polnareff in personality and appearance, and similar to Hierophant Green's Emerald Splash and ability. Araki also realized that the Emperor was much better suited for an enemy because of how powerful he made the stand, not giving it a specific range as well as allowing it to fire an infinite number of bullets as fast as Hol Horse can pull the trigger. Araki was in a way able to rewrite the past and change what he thought was too powerful about the Emperor to be a main cast member stand later in Part 5, giving Mista a gun-based stand, but with the limitations of a real gun using real bullets, as Mista had a pretty similar stand to the Emperor but was only able to fire 6 bullets at a time. So for more than a few obvious reasons, Hol Horse becoming a member of the Crusaders didn't really work out. But one of my favorite Araki quotes from his Hol Horse JoJonium interview was, "Maybe I didn't let him join the group because I love westerns and I felt like it would have been a shame to remove the iconic outlaw gunman from the group somewhere along the way. away. But then just a few lines later, Araki says that, "I didn't have any more humans join the group after that. We had a cute dog Iggy instead to assist the Joestar party." So although Iggy objectively kept the group more balanced, I suppose Araki thought it would be easier on the readers and himself to kill off a cute dog at some point more so than an outlaw gunman. This man really doesn't like dogs. So in the end, the original decision of Hol Horse remaining just a minor villain was recirculated into fruition. Even if his character were to throw the group off balance aside, I think the real hurdle would have been how do you make the pre-existing main cast accept Hol Horse into the group right after they had thought he just killed Avdol. I suppose it could have been as simple as Kakyoin and Polnareff's transition of just the removal of Dio's spore and an explanation of why they need to defeat Dio. But I think it might have felt a bit too forced and really wouldn't fit Hol Horse's outlaw yet cowardly type character to agree or even want to go on this journey to defeat Dio, with no personal motive like the Joestars and Polnareff. But due to Araki's attachment to this character, he wasn't gone forever and was truly a special minor villain, as after his first battle with the Crusaders, he had a pretty open ending riding off on a horse after being saved by one of his lovers. I suppose Araki did this to leave the rest of his life up to one's imagination, or of course what actually happened. Hol Horse comes back for another appearance and arc. Never before in JoJo has a minor villain after their initial arc reappeared so significantly so much later in the part, let alone be involved in a whole new arc. So I suppose Araki's attachment and indecisiveness of Hol Horse made for something truly unique and an even more memorable character. Maybe in retrospect, it wouldn't have been such a bad idea for Hol Horse to join the Crusaders. As we have seen, it's totally possible for similar archetypes to peacefully exist and even work well together in the same part and same cast, like Josuke and Okuyasu's broship and many of the Passione members. I don't think he would have been too out of place among the Crusaders. Of course, him and Polnareff would get along, having similar personalities, and form a great relationship by the end of the journey. But if Hol Horse had stayed, maybe Araki wouldn't have made the decision to bring Avdol back, and it might seem a bit unbalanced to remove the mentor type character and replace him with a comedic overzealous gunslinger. And again, there's the issue and abilities of the Emperor's overpowered nature and similar practical use to Hierophant's Emerald Splash. In the end, Hol Horse was a character that Araki had trouble letting go of and really didn't know what he wanted to do with his character, resulting in him coming back a second time to try to defeat the Crusaders, but ultimately suffering the same fate as his fellow villains. A violent and humiliating defeat. Ironically, suffering from the same exact wound he had originally given to Avdol, shot by his own bullet in the head, just barely missing his skull, and last seen being carried off in an ambulance. So whatever happened to Hol Horse after Stardust Crusaders? Well, either the bullet he took to the head damaged or removed Dio's head spore, and after recovering from his injury, he lived happily ever after doing Hol Horse shenanigans. Or the spore wasn't removed and he ended up who knows where, suffering from the same condition as Okuyasu's father. I myself really enjoyed Hol Horse's character throughout Stardust Crusaders, be it his Western outlaw design or just quirky personality. And even if Hol Horse's character objectively threw off the balance of the cast, I don't think I would have minded having him around for the journey. Looking back at Hol Horse in retrospect, he seems to be forever branded as the one that almost made it, the Crusader that never was. Anyways guys, that's a video, an entire video dedicated to Hol Horse. What more could you guys possibly ask for? Like the video if you enjoyed, or if I fought your boredom, and of course subscribe for more videos. Thank you all for watching, and I hope you enjoyed.